Hey guys, this is Tony. In my first video of unboxing the Sinanju kit, I showed you very briefly what the instruction manual looked like and just showing that it was color and the parts breakdown. I wanted to go into a little bit more detail just to show you how it compared to the construction manual of a Bandai kit. So here you obviously have the full parts breakdown, which I largely just used as a checklist to make sure that I have everything. So I think just 4 pages of parts lists. The resin is cast in different colors. So obviously it's the Sinanju is red, so most of the components will be red. Some parts for the arm, for the gun, obviously being grey, and a few. They're not inner frame components, I don't think, because obviously the inner frame's pre-assembled, but there are obviously some grey components that are used for various parts. The construction itself is in color, which is pretty cool. So what you can see here is obviously a nice black outline along each part, which kind of makes it easier to see. Let me just rather zoom in so you got the light. And what I was saying before is the image is actually quite low resolution, so on some of the parts when I was going through the parts list, it was quite tricky to make sure that I actually had all the different pieces. What is different here, if I just show you the, well, let's just see actually here first, we count the number of pages. So we actually only have 4 pages for the construction manual. So 1, 2, 3, 4, which is not many at all. Now I think I counted something like, it was 360 parts in total. A good 100 of those are little metal parts. So I haven't gone through this in detail, but I hope nothing's missing. These are all numbered and seem to end at a nice concluding image over there. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. So I'm just going to compare that to a Bandai kit. This is the instruction manual or construction manual for my Perfect Grade Strike Gundam. It is in blue and white, single color, which doesn't actually make that much of a difference. Compared to the G-Systems kit, you will get actually far more detailed imagery, so finding the parts is quite easy. By comparison, everything obviously comes on runners. Here I count maybe 12 or 15 different runners, and the advantage here obviously is that each runner has its own labeling, so there's B, C, which makes it quite easy to find. When you start each set, so for example if I'm looking at the pair of feet, it first tells you which runners you're actually going to need. So that makes it quite easy to just pull those out of the box, put those aside, and you can then put your box away and you can just focus on those pieces. And then obviously when you look at each in detail, you can't see it here perhaps, but each piece is also numbered. So when you pull it off the sprue and you're looking at constructing it, you obviously have each piece that's labeled. So L15, you go to the runner L and you pull out piece 15. So that's pretty straightforward. Also far more detailed in terms of step-by-step breakdown. Loads and loads of images. Here, unlike the Perfect Grade Astro Red frame, you also even see some, I think these are photographs or renders of that part that you've just assembled, just showing what it looks like. And it just keeps going on and on. The parts list, in terms of numbering, is relatively similar to the Sinanju from G-Systems, yet we've got, how many pages I've got here? It just keeps on going. In total, so look at that, got 18 pages. So that compares to the 4 pages of the Sinanju. So another complication that I was finding, or another difficulty with the Sinanju, is obviously, if I look at this here, for this section, it doesn't give you a summary at the top telling you which runners you might have needed or which sets you might have needed. So you literally have to go through your big box, so this is my box, all the different components. Yes, they are bagged, but for example on the A pieces, if I just look at the sheet here, I'm going to have, where is it? There's the A sheet, and the packing list, I've got 14 different bags, so I've got to go through 14 of these bags to just find the piece I'm after. So if I go back to this head that I'm building, I'm looking at a few pieces there. These don't seem to be, maybe I'll need to look a bit deeper, but they don't seem to be labelled or numbered incrementally. So I'm literally going to have to go through each of these bags labelled A and try and find those parts. And then it gets a little bit more difficult because, so for example, you got these really tiny pieces here like AA05, etc., etc. So if I then look in the AA section, I actually only see an AA01, 02, and 03, but looking at this instruction manual, it's wanting an AA05. So, I thought, oh gee, have I, am I missing some pieces? So I had to go back to the parts list to try and find them again. And then I actually found that they were then under the packing list U9. So that was quite strange. So there's U9, and there's the AA05 and the AA06. And what I was saying previously is that the packing list doesn't actually necessarily agree with the parts list. So for example, in the packing list, there isn't a U9. So they seem to be kind of bundled in with something else. So I think this is where I'm going to just have a little bit of trouble, is, having to go through this list, look at every single piece and then try to figure out which bag I need and then break open the bag and do that part. So that's going to be quite tricky. Alright, so I've been able to find all the parts for my steps 1 and 2 from the instruction manual, and that actually took me the better part of an hour to do. Not that many parts, but as I was saying before, just the different bags don't actually group these parts in any particular order, so you do have to go through them individually. What I also did find interesting or difficult was some of those parts there that aren't labelled actually came from the internal frame. So if you watched my previous video, I was saying, oh, there are a few extra parts here with no formal description. That's actually where they're for, or from, or what they're for. So here you can see some of the parts there. They have actually labelled them or numbered them on the instruction manual for the internal frame. So here you can see all these parts are numbered, and they tell you how to put the frame together. But when it comes to the actual instruction manual, they don't actually say what those parts might be. So that took a bit of time. I also struggled on this little guy here. Looking at the parts list, there you can see it's G03. And I found that it just doesn't really look like it. So if I put those two side by side, that was looking like it's got like a little insert there. Let's see if I can zoom in a bit more. This part looks quite different. So they've obviously changed the part somewhat compared to when they first did that printing. And I actually have found I had to go to the parts list to just see what that part might be. So there's the G03, which is the part I now have. So if I put those two side by side, you can see that they are the same part. So that is correct, but it just doesn't seem to really look like what I have in the diagram, although it's still G03. I haven't been able to put it together yet. I'm going to have to do a lot of trimming, and hopefully I'll be able to make that part fit. At the moment I don't really see what's going to slot in there. So yeah, that's just an example of the effort required to find the pieces, because you don't have runners and sprues that are labelled. So I'm going to assemble these two first, do some cleanup on them, and then start painting. And that'll make just a nice little start to the actual kit. Thanks for sticking around. This is quite a long video. If you liked it, please give it a like. Any questions, or if you'd like me to shoot a video of anything else, please let me know. See you soon.